Hey everyone, I got a really exciting show for you today. As you know, I think there is one market in the entire US that you and I should be paying attention to because I think it is the canary in the coal mine. I think it is the one that's going to show us coming out of this quickly, or this might be a longer term thing. And as you've been watching this channel, you know it's Las Vegas. And if you're looking at Las Vegas real estate, there is really only one man in the YouTube world and real estate that we need to talk to, and that is Bryan Lebo, and he has been gracious enough to join us today. How you doing, Bryan?
Hey guys, how are you?
Awesome, man. Bryan, thank you very much for doing this. You have a blossoming YouTube channel. You've been putting out great data for almost a decade now. So why don't you introduce yourself to my audience, and we can kind of get into why I think talking to you is so critical.
Sure. So my name is Bryan Lebo. I've lived in Las Vegas for about 30 years. I've been in real estate for 16 years. Of course, I do normal residential real estate, but I've also represented 8 banks and asset management companies. So that was a really essential and vital part to our recovery from, say, 2008, late 2008, all the way through the REO boom, went to about 2014, and then we kind of regained normality. So I represented banks and asset management companies. I flipped about 100 homes. I started flipping before there was television shows and all the excitement that there is nowadays. And before you had investment hedge funds that were purchasing, not so much flipping, but institutional renters. So pretty wide, vast array of residential knowledge in the Las Vegas market.
Yeah. And again, Bryan, one of the things you'll see on my channel that I'm pretty kind of boring and repetitive. I talk about knowing your market, right? Learn your market, and being there for 30 years, flipping over 100 homes, being involved, frankly, at the bottom, right? Being involved, having that experience at the bottom. Too many YouTube experts these days have 3 or 4 years experience. All they've known is kind of appreciating market. And many of them are talking about, hey, take that 5% discount, buy that wedge deal. And, having done it myself for 20 years, pre and post crash, I know a changing market could be dangerous for folks. So why don't we start with your story back being that asset manager, and just remind us what Las Vegas was like when foreclosures and short sales and REOs was a thing, because there was a time that dominated the market, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's just hope that we never have to revisit those days.
True.
But yeah, I mean, everything really started to hit in 2008. So in 2008, the impetus really started where new home builders lowered their prices. So one day we woke up and Pulte, who's a national home builder, they had lowered their price over $200,000 in one community. Oh, and wow. There were cracks forming. We were starting to see some troubling signs. And in hindsight, I mean, everything was a troubling sign. But what ended up happening was once those new homes just plummeted in value, that signaled just the very end for everyone, because I would say half of the brand new homes being purchased were actually being purchased with the sole intent to resell, and at least 50%. Wow. So at that very moment, when you realize that you're not going to be able to flip your property, in fact, if the builder lowers the prices in the neighborhood that you're in, it's game over completely, and all of your equity was wiped out. Because back then, there was many ways to manipulate loan programs. So you had, legitimate low barriers to entry, and then you could kind of weasel your way into more. So plenty of people were 0 down, 5% down. Yeah. So when the builder lowers the price by 25%, I mean, you're done. It's a wrap. Yeah. So, at first, the first thing you start to see are short sales. So at first, what you start noticing is that people just obviously don't have the equity to sell. So when you start seeing short sales start to increase, that's your precursor to defaults coming. Because no one when I got into the business in like 2003, there was an option on the MLS for short sale, yes or no. And I went around the office asking people, what does that mean?
What is it? Yeah.
And literally, I'm not even kidding, no one could answer the question. And they just said, wow, don't even worry about it. It's like a bank thing and you're never going to see it. And that was the answer that sufficed for many years, because the concept of someone selling below what they paid just foreign. So yeah, the whole REO and just crushing times that ensued, the precursor really was first the home builders lowering their prices. Then you start to see an array of short sales hit the market, and then those short sales turn into notice of defaults. Once you get into the notice of defaults, short sales become very, very difficult, because why would I want to purchase this home that may or may not even be able to be purchased? And it'll take, best case scenario, 90 days, worst case scenario, I had short sales that took 3 years to finally sell. So what happens is people will buy a short sale if that's their only option, and if it seems like a good deal. But once foreclosures hit, no one wants to deal with short sales anymore. So we'll see. Yeah. Anyway.
So again, this is why talking with an expert, somebody who's been in the market, is so important. I had no idea about that first break in the system, Pulte Homes, right? Lowering 200 grand, because that basically wipes out most of the equity of any home that they sold in that community up to that point. Just gone. And they're looking around, right? If you're a home buyer, put 5% down, you're looking like, where'd it go? What am I going to do? Right? Strategic default was a thing.
Yeah. And I mean, a perfect analogy. So, I mean, the difference between, one of the differences, I should say, between what we experienced in 2008 and what we may experience now was we just had a slew of, illegitimate buyers, if you will.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Every valet parker owned 3-4 homes. You had dancers and strippers that somehow owned 5 homes and, were killing it. So the difference is, I mean, in a legitimate sense, I had a scenario where I had two teachers, and they had basically emptied their savings to be able to buy 2 investment properties. And their agent had told them, hey, let's just buy this house, we'll rent it for a year, and then after a year, you'll have made so much money, we'll flip it, and then you'll cash out. Because there was such hyper appreciation.
Yeah.
The fundamentals were never in place from the very beginning. So these unfortunate individuals took their realtor's advice, and they were losing like $900 on each house every month, which fundamentally makes very little sense. But their thought was, okay, we're going to lose 11 grand this year, but we're going to make 150,000 once we sell it. So who cares? The problem is you don't really have those things happening nearly as much. I mean, hardly at all. So.
Yeah. The whole idea of negative cash flow and bet on appreciation was so much an 05, 06 thing.
It was just leveraging. Everyone was leveraging and over-leveraging. And you don't really quite see that nearly much, hardly at all.
Not at all. One more thing I want to ask about the 06 time frame, and then we can get to today, because I think the setup is very different, and that's what people are going to hear from this is, tell me more about, again, I don't have any experience in Vegas, but I've always see the high, I don't know what you call them, condo towers, or, just big high rises where most of them are rented out to, or they're basically condos, at least that's what they'd be called in California. What was it like then? Or was it all just single family homes that saw the appreciation in 05, 06?
No, that's a great question. So at the time, the phrase that was coined, it was coined the Manhattanization of Las Vegas, which anyone that knew me in 2000, 2004, 2005, literally, they'll swear, I'll swear, I was probably one of the only people that thought it was the most ludicrous idea, because Manhattan's an island, and you can try to compare it to like Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a metro area where if you want to live in a nice suburban home and have a suburban experience, you've got an hour-plus drive to work every day. Whereas in Las Vegas, the outskirts of Las Vegas is going to yield you a 20-minute drive downtown if you're a profitable attorney. So the concept of building these massive condos for urban living, I'm like, hell, we don't have any urban experience. Downtown at the time was atrocious. So, I mean, you'd step over hypodermic needles to get to your front door at your condo. It just, they were selling the hope of the future as opposed to what really made sense. But the problem is, like I always say, in a market that's appreciating, people tend to not really use good judgment. People tend to think that everything's going to go up forever. I just want to get in. It's that fear of missing out. People want to be a part of this high because everyone's making money and they want to make money too. But few people actually think, is what is occurring logical? Does this make fundamental sense? And the problem with there were several condo projects. So at the time, I mean, I think we had something like 30 that were slated to be built, and maybe, 15 got built.
Mm.
But you had condos that are traditional condos, high rises. Then you had mid rises, and then you had what were called condo tels. These condo tels, like MGM, the residences, that was probably the biggest one. The concept was, you buy this condo, it's basically a glorified hotel room. You get one little closet where you can keep your personal items, but you're basically buying a hotel room that you cannot modify. So you can use it as much as you want. However, when you're not occupying the unit, then it goes into the rental pool for MGM Grand. So when MGM Grand is over, they would move people into your residence, and therefore you would get a return on your investment and some rental income. Great idea, but the reality is who is MGM looking out for? They're going to get to 101%, then they'll start pushing. So yeah, fight weekends, big weekends, sure, you can make money, but you're still going to be kind of out there, and they were relegated to the rules and regulations. So the main condos, the regular condos, that was a huge bubble. And the problem that I kind of saw coming, and I sold very, very few, and I tried to get my clients out of them. But the problem was this. Everyone was flipping brand new properties. Probably the easiest, greatest way to make money of all time. You put $5,000 for an earnest money deposit, $5,000 at the design center. A year later, your house is built. You put a for sale sign, and you made $150,000 for no work, no risk, no liability, damn near. The problem with the condo hotels is this. When you buy into a subdivision, those subdivisions tend to be released in phases, right?
Yes.
So phase 1 will have 8 homes, phase 2 will have 8 homes, and there may be 20 phases to this neighborhood, right? Because of those phased releases, what ends up happening is, let's say 8 homes are released. Half the people will be investors that will immediately flip. The other half will be people living in the homes. So what ends up happening is, when your house is completed and you go ahead and put it on the market, you're really only competing with like 3 other people around you.
Right.
And by the time that next phase is completed, you've already sold your house and the other people sold their house. Yeah. So that made a lot more sense. The problem is, when you build a 30-story tower, that tower usually kind of gets all released at the same time.
Right.
So what ended up happening is, you have 500 units, and those high rises, no one in Vegas was planning on living. Everyone that I know who bought a unit in the high rise, I don't know one person that actually had the intention of living in that unit.
Interesting.
So yeah, some were second homes, but most were investments to be flipped. So the problem is, they were very expensive. I mean, anything on the strip was $1,000 a square foot. And the problem was, here's 600 units that become completed. The tower is finally complete. 600 units are built, and then all of a sudden 500 units come on the market.
Yeah.
There really wasn't even the demand to begin with. And then that artificial demand, now you just go ahead and just double it. It was a bad idea that no one realized was going to happen until it actually happened. But it also kind of coincided with the crash. And the problem with the crash was, basically, if you realize that you're going to lose your ass on your unit, you're not going to pay your HOA dues.
Yep.
These HOA dues are $1,000 a month.
Jeez.
So all of a sudden, 600 units are built, 500 are on for sale. Now 400 are short sales. No one's paying their HOA dues. So now your HOA is basically going bankrupt because it can't afford to exist. So then the next step is, you lose all of your funding. So condos tend to have what are called certificates. So when you lose your condo certificate, those units cannot be financed.
Right.
So when you're trying to sell a unit that you thought was going to be worth $1 million, now you're hoping you can get $700,000. In a recession, who's writing a check for $700,000? Just, no problem. Not going to happen. Once you lose financing, I mean, 95% of potential buyers just are out of the game.
Yeah.
So now the question is, how low do those prices have to plummet before it makes sense for you to buy cash? Yep. So what ended up happening is, while single family residences in Vegas pretty much were 50% off, these condos, plummeted all the way to like 80% off
Yeah.
easily. So very, very, very risky endeavor at the time.
Yeah. And so this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about Vegas, because I think appreciating where we were and then understanding where we're at is going to highlight why it's probably not the same, right? Yeah. I am certainly not talking about 80% off or probably even 50% off in Vegas, in 2020 or 21. But it's important to see where it could go, because again, we don't have the financing problem, right? There's not strippers and dancers and valets getting 5 homes like you saw in the movie The Big Short. The financing's cheaper, right? It's also 3% usually fixed rate. In 2005 and 6, it was all variable. And why get a 30-year loan? You're just going to refi in 2 years, right? That was the thing that people were talking about. So what I wanted to talk to you about is, let's go to February, right? February of 2020. So before the health scare. What was the market like in Vegas, January, February of this year? What was it like in your opinion?
So we're going to talk about the good days, huh?
Yeah, let's do it.
The good old days. It's super funny because in March, I actually shot my March video like probably the first week in March. And going into that video, I'm pulling the numbers and I'm watching, the inventory at the time, our inventory had plummeted 37 out of the last 39 weeks. Wow. So we were down to like less than 2 months supply of inventory, which, they say a stabilized market is 6 months. Yep. We were down below 2 months. And the way we were trending, we were going to only have maybe a month of inventory within 6 weeks. Yep. So I shot an entire video basically saying, man, this spring and summer is going to be ridiculous. I think we literally are going to see some big appreciation. Not necessarily that it's deserved, but it's just economics 101, right? Supply and demand. Supply plummets, even if demand just remains consistent. Yeah. It is what it is. You're going to have multiple offers. We're going to have bidding wars, and we're going to be in for some serious appreciation. So I shot the video. I got a little bit busy with some things. About 10 days went by, and I'm like, I've got to edit this video. And then March 17th hits, and I sat there, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to put this video up? I looked like the biggest idiot. So begrudgingly, I went back, I rewrote everything, I looked at the numbers, and I just came up with a completely different video saying, this is what it looked like 10 days ago. Yeah. And I have no idea what the world is going to look like. But we were trending to have just an unbelievable time in Las Vegas still. Much better than I think last year.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Anytime you have 37 of 39 weeks with inventory reducing, that's a seller's market by anybody's definition, right? So I think that's great to know. And now the question is, what happened, right? Because it obviously, I think, again, this is why understanding Vegas is important, because I believe, and you'll go through the numbers if you like, but I think inventory has spiked pretty quickly in Vegas. Yeah. And I haven't seen that in other markets. So let's talk about that in the last 6 weeks or whatever it's been.
Yeah. So it's my overall opinion on everything, like we discussed privately, is that right now is a bizarre, tenuous moment where I don't really care what is happening at this very moment. It's more reading the tea leaves for what's coming down the pipeline. Mm-hmm. Right now, things are a little all over the place, and I think it's just a temporary position that we're in. Yeah. But what happened was, right after March 17th, all of a sudden we just saw a massive spike. I think the first week was like 372 net homes above. Mm-hmm. Then the next week, our inventory raised by 600 homes. So all of a sudden, it was like insane. Since March 11th, right, the week before we shut down for quarantine, our inventory has gone up, I think, 43+%. So, that's a huge increase in inventory. Mm-hmm. But what happened was, I kind of noticed the inventory shot up, and then for 2 weeks it plateaued. Okay. And we just started going up a little bit again. But again, I wouldn't necessarily read too much into those numbers just yet. Again, right from the very beginning, just like with every social issue, some people just said, this is all bull crap, it's a hoax, I'm not even worried about it. I'm fine. And then other people hoarded toilet paper. So,
Yeah.
I mean, how do you have a society that's that far apart? So
Yeah.
at the same time, financially, there were people that said, oh, you know what? I remember 2008, I'm out. I'll sell for whatever I can get. So a lot of those were people just hitting the panic button and out. And while other people were no. What was interesting is, you have a lot of people putting their homes on the market. Then you saw a ton of withdrawn listings as well. So
Ah.
if you really look at it, the amount of new listings was much higher. Those are the net numbers. So again, some people are putting their home on the market, and then other people are just withdrawing and coming out. So it's really still early to figure out what trend is really occurring, because some people don't want to show their home. They don't
Yeah.
want people in their homes. And with everything else that's going on, a lot of people are just going to hold on as long as possible. So
Yeah, I think you're, and I've been thinking about this since you and I talked on Saturday or Friday or whenever that was when we spoke. I think you're right. That little, I don't know, knee-jerk reaction or whatever you want to call it from that initial spike is probably, you're right. I bet you a majority of those are people that experienced '08. And they probably have a fair amount of equity as well, right? They're probably bought, right? If they bought for sure, and they're like, oh, I'm out. I want to get liquid. I want to get flat to, have stock discussions. So I think that's dead on. And then I think you're right. I think it is a holding pattern. And the question for me in every market, my market of Fresno, California, the market I live in called the Bay Area, and Vegas is when that location comes out of quarantine. In the Bay Area, we're still in it, right? Until June 7th, I think I heard. I don't know when Vegas is coming out of it. Hopefully soon. The question will become: do sellers flood or do buyers flood? Because it is, to your earlier point, a supply-demand equation, and this is so unusual times. So I don't know if you've thought about that.
again, people act in very different ways, and it's very, like I said, some people think it's a hoax. Some people are stocking up on toilet paper, and I think for the immediate future, that's kind of the state that we're in. Some people are very hopeful. There was an article today on Zillow where they think prices will just drop 2 to 3%, but then next year prices are going to go through the roof.
Yeah.
Now, I tend to disagree. I mean, I think you and I are aligned on very opposite end of the spectrum.
For sure. Yeah.
But Zillow also makes money,
Yeah.
The way they make money. So I'm not looking to them as the gospel. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this immediate period. I think there's going to be some people that heed the warning and just cash out and rent for a little bit. There are going to be some people that are going to downsize and just be a little more humble to make it through. I've had a bunch of people come out of the woodworks wanting to buy in the last few weeks. And
Oh, that's good.
I've told everyone what I think, which is, if you can wait. Some people are just against the principle of renting, and to each their own.
Sure.
I'm direct and honest with what my thoughts and opinions are, but if you're going to buy, then I'll represent you.
Yeah.
So it's really weird. You're seeing very weird things in the market right now. If it's a really, really, really nice home, it's actually selling in a week or two. They're still moving quick.
Yeah.
In the good areas, homes are still selling. The difference is once you go to the ultra luxury market, I mean, it's come to a complete crash halt.
Yeah.
Once in our area, once you get past the $700,000-800,000 mark, nothing really is moving much.
Well, that's a great. So I always talk about 2x the median as being the most dangerous spot. In Vegas, I think I saw on your chart, is median like 2 or 360 today?
No, the median price is actually, it dropped 2% last month, so we're a little over 309,000.
309, yeah.
You'd be at 620.
Yeah.
And anything over 510 becomes a jumbo loan. Jumbo loans are difficult to get.
Tough. Yeah.
So that's you're still looking okay in that 600-700. I'm still seeing things move.
Okay.
But once you get past the 8, that's kind of considered the luxury market in Vegas. And recession and luxury don't really go hand in hand. And especially with these jumbo loan terms.
That's true.
Once you hit over $1 million on the jumbo loans, it really starts drying up.
Yeah.
So again, really nice homes, they're moving. Homes that are on the lower end that are affordable, you're dealing with some less sophisticated buyers, and they finally have an opportunity to be able to jump in and purchase something
Yeah.
for the first time in a while without having, multiple offers or disruption. So
Yeah.
you're seeing some crack.
Yeah. So in my market, just so we can keep talking apples to apples, my median is 260, rough and tough. Anything below 200, so call that 80% of the median, it's flying. I mean, we're talking 3-4 days on the market, and probably multiple offers. So yeah. So for Las Vegas, that would be 309. So call that 250. Is that true? Anything below 250 is kind of flying?
Yeah, I'm still seeing it, but again, you can give a blanket answer, but the truth is much more nuanced. It depends on the area.
Okay.
Certain, like in Summerlin, the cheapest house you're going to find, which Summerlin's the nicest part of Vegas, if you will, you can't really find a home under $300,000. But those homes are moving that are on the low end. Whereas when you go to the east side of town or the north part of Las Vegas, where the demographics are a little bit lower, obviously pricing reflects that. But you're also dealing with different types of homeowners. So a lot of the lower demographic, they're completely disenfranchised.
Yeah.
So it really, really, really just depends. Like during the recession, when I went back and looked at the data, the oddest thing was that it was the bottom of the market that got crushed and the top of the market that got crushed. It was less severe around the medium, but on the bottom end of the market, I mean, you just got completely obliterated. And especially in the lowest demographic areas, a lot of people were getting loans falsely with TIN, instead of social security numbers, they were using TINs. There was a lot of loan fraud that just falsely held that low end of the market. And once all those regulations came down, that demographic was the most disenfranchised. So even people who wanted to purchase a home just found that they couldn't even get a loan.
Got it.
So that housing just absolutely plummeted to levels where, one of my buddies bought 53 properties and the average price was $38,000 a door.
Wow.
I mean, the dirt was worth more than $38,000, but on the east side of town, people weren't able to get loans. So what's the value of something when no one can purchase? A lot less.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that's interesting about this time, and again, because both of us have experience from the 08, 06, whatever timeframe crashes, this one is far more, at least currently, it's an unemployment problem. But we have bonus, unemployment checks from the Fed, that extra $600. So most people are feeling okay. And then we have forbearance, right? I don't know about Vegas, but forbearance was never a word I heard. It was a bank would tell you, hey, I'm not talking to you until you're 3 months late. Then we could talk about short sales and, cash for keys and all of that. And then if that didn't work, then it was foreclosure. This is being treated so differently than last time. Is that also true of Vegas? Was forbearance a thing that I just didn't know?
No, I mean, back then, it was nowhere near as common and known as it is now. But yes, I mean, the problem was, like you said, right now our main problem is employment and lack thereof. Yep. Whereas before, I mean, look, if you bought a property that you were going to flip in your mind, if you bought a property for $600,000 and then you wake up and it's worth $400,000, your problem isn't so much making the mortgage payment as much as why am I making this mortgage payment?
Correct.
Was I'm never going to get into the positive zone here. Mm-hmm. So the problems are very, very different. With what we're facing right now, what I said I did a couple of videos on coronavirus and its effects. And the two things that I said was it was dependent on duration and intervention. And the government has done so much with regards to intervention that it's difficult. I don't know anyone that can 100% prognosticate what is going to happen down the road, because we still don't know how much more government intervention there will be and what that intervention entails. Mm-hmm. So the issue that we really have is, I do think that it's going to be a problem next year. The question is how big of a problem. But going back to what we discussed earlier, right now we're living in a parallel universe where fundamentals are just completely out of whack. And we don't know how people are going to get through and how people are going to respond until you essentially remove that government intervention. Mm-hmm. What happens when you remove the government intervention? Because, you're getting paid $4,000 a month. So if you're a bartender on the strip, you don't have a job, right? You're
Yeah.
done. I mean, you're done, and you're probably not going to make any type of good money for a very long time. But with $4,000 a month, one, you can take the forbearance and stop paying your mortgage.
Yep.
So now that $4,000 a month simply has to tide you over for your car payment and your credit cards and just life. And most people can somehow manage to get by with $4,000 a month with no mortgage payment.
Correct.
So the question is, what happens to forbearances in October? The question is, what happens when these unemployed individuals no longer are collecting unemployment? That's the big question. And in Las Vegas, you know, we're being hit tremendously hard. I mean, there's a lot of things here that aren't even really making the news. Station casinos. I scoured yesterday, couldn't find an article, but it's kind of common knowledge here in Vegas. So Station Casinos is arguably the largest local casino hotel operator in Las Vegas. It's mostly for locals, but their flagship is Red Rock Resort, which is here in Summerlin. But the flagship that everyone knows is the Palms Hotel and Resort. They had an abysmal failure for their nightclub. They lost a crap load of money and had to shut down their nightclub because it was such a failure and they were hemorrhaging. This is before everything happened. So Stations has come out and said that they're going to reopen Red Rock Resort, which is their flagship and their moneymaker, and where their corporate headquarters is located. But they own two casinos called the Fiesta and another casino called Texas Station. Well, according to everyone in Las Vegas, all the employees for Texas Station and the two Fiestas, everyone was called in to turn in their uniforms. It's just permanent. There's no, who knows if they're going to reopen or liquidate and sell, or if they are going to reopen, it'll be sometime in 2021. Same thing with MGM Resorts. Don't know when Aria is going to open up. Lots of rumors that if basketball doesn't come to Las Vegas, Aria might just not even, they might not even bother until January. So, I mean, there are some huge telltale signs going on right now. And I mean, you've seen the photos flying around the internet of people on the poker table with, you know, a huge plexiglass surrounding. And I don't know if you've seen it yet, but, you know, I'll send you a photo so you can maybe throw it up on the screen.
Sure.
But we don't know how people are going to respond to Las Vegas, how much money people will have, even if they wanted to come to Las Vegas. It's certainly not going to be the Las Vegas that you knew in February. All the clubs and pools, they've pretty much said, like, the summer's lost. Don't even know if and when the clubs are going to be reopening. So it doesn't really give people much of a reason to come to Las Vegas. Therefore, 29% of our labor force is hugely affected. So again, we got a Band-Aid on the problem. Like I said in the video, we're tying our shoelaces tighter right now to walk it off, but you can't do that forever.
Yeah. And that's why I love what you put out there. It's just the real stuff. You're not, you know, some, I don't know, real estate agents, real estate brokers, they always want to glorify it, right? Everything is always rosy. Everything is always good. Come buy a house, come buy a house, come buy a house. And you're like, no, this is where we are. And you're so right. We are in a parallel universe. We, the nation, we Vegas, because you're right. This is so bonus unemployment and forbearance. That combination makes it so most people in Vegas can limp through the next couple of months, at least, right? Currently that $600 goes off at the end of July. I fully expect it to be extended, but it can't be forever, right? Eventually the bill comes due. And that's when we got to figure out Vegas, right? Because there are lots of potential outcomes. Let's just take the example that half the casinos open and half the other ones don't, at least in the short term, and then they're sold. That's a lot of jobs. And do people stay and do something else? Do they move out of town? On the positive side, I think you are going to get a crap ton of Californians coming to Vegas, because now if you can work from home, like Twitter and Snap and all these other people are saying, why would you live in California? Vegas is fine, right? So this whole push-pull thing is just so hard to think about.
Like I said, yeah, it's very difficult to predict. I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Sure.
In my opinion, delusion never got anything done. So there's no point in being delusional. Nothing wrong with being optimistic, but delusional is dangerous. And, you know, I mean, think about it. 7 stages of grief. The first one is denial. And I think there's a tremendous amount of heads that are in the sand right now because people don't really want to think and deal with what might actually occur. And what the greatest predictor of future performance is past performance.
Yeah.
So if we go back and look, like if you look at 2008, 2009, so many people held on to material possessions, including their homes, for too long.
Yeah.
And then by the time that they accepted the reality, it was too late and their options were severely limited. And I think that that's potentially what we're looking at here. This is why, again, another reason I say there's not too much point in looking at current present situation. It's more looking at the underlying numbers and trying to ascertain what this will mean down the road. So again, like I said, a lot of people are very delusional at this moment as far as what will happen because the government has helped them prop things up enough to get by. Yeah. But if you read the tea leaves, it doesn't look very good.
Yeah, it doesn't look good currently. Totally agree. I guess the one question I wanted to ask you for sure is you've already flipped over 100 homes. There's probably a price point that you're thinking, you know what? I might stick my toe back in the water. And if the median is, I mean, I don't actually know where you play. Maybe you don't play below the median, but have you already thought how much it would have to go down for you to stick your toe back in the water and say, you know what, I might want to start flipping homes again?
I mean, there's, again, you know, I could give you just a BS, you know, stock and standard answer, but that's not what we're here for, right? We're here to analyze and think. The truth is that every deal is different. And when it comes to flipping, the money is made on the buy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So the reason why you saw the industrial institutional flippers like Zillow and Open Door walk was because they felt that they couldn't ascertain what the market was going to do. So if you can't predict what the market is going to do, then how do you know if you're getting a good deal or not? Right? I can buy a house, you know, 30% off right now, but if in 60 days when that house is ready to be marketed, everything is plummeted, I may have bought the house for what it's worth by the time I sell it. So every deal is different. When it comes to flipping, I mean, I would imagine it's relatively universal, but it tends to be a lot easier to flip a lower end home than on the high end, just because it's quicker. Anytime you're flipping, it's about turning your money over and moving on to the next deal. So while there's huge profit margins on the luxury end, a lot of people are just going to get slaughtered right now because, I mean, imagine if you bought a house 8 months ago, you spent 3-4 months on a beautiful remodel, you figure you're going to make $200,000. It's sitting. I mean, I can send you a ton. They're just sitting and sitting. And again, at that $1 million price point, most of those buyers are just going, hey, I lost my ass in my portfolio. I don't want to liquidate anything. I don't want to make any major moves. So that's a warning to heed for sure. You know, like we're talking, you know, a $300,000 home in Summerlin, that's the bare bottom. Most of them need remodeling. So if you can buy one of those for, if you want to sell me one for $220 and I could put 30 grand into it, I'll take that all day long.
Okay.
But on the same hand, right now, that market segment isn't hurting that bad.
Not hurting enough.
Buying those homes. So why would you sell me a home at that price when you could easily sell it yourself? And for the price that you would sell it to me, I don't want to take the risk.
No, totally get it. And maybe it's a metric. Maybe it's not a price point. Maybe that was just a dumb question. Maybe there's metrics because, again, you have data back to 2012. Maybe it's days on market turning around because it might be extending. Maybe it's inventory because, again, inventory's been up 42% or whatever it was in 3 weeks or 6 weeks. Is there your favorite metric that says, hey, things are getting better versus getting worse?
Like I said, for me personally, I'm hitting the pause button.
Okay, because, there you go.
I mean, every 2 weeks, it's almost like we're getting new information. Don't worry about masks. We need to wear a mask. No, now you have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And with Wall Street, I mean, who knows what is going on with all these bankruptcies? And look at all these restaurants that some are coming back, some aren't. We know what is possible. And then we are hopeful that things will just work its way out. But the problem is, I mean, Would you want to buy any long-term stocks? I mean, if you're on the stock market, you're in and you're out. You're in and you're out.
Mm-hmm.
You really want to go long right now on anything? I don't,
Yeah.
And that's my feeling is when you're looking to flip, it's somewhat of a longer term investment because, you're going to be under construction for 30 to 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
And in this world, 60 days,
It's a lot of time.
we could be back. The country could be in quarantine in 60 days.
Again, yep.
Or everything could be open and everything looks rosy.
Yeah.
Again, that's just a risk that I personally am not willing to take because I don't want to be stuck.
I'm so glad you said that, because what I'm telling people all the time is most people that are looking at real estate investing today should just pause and or learn their market. Right? This is not the time at a market pivot. It's not the time to just rush in because you can get a 5% discount. Right? You can lose your ass in an environment like this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to segue to what I think is.
Please.
So again, a lot of the questions are what's going on right now. What does it look like? And like I said, the true answer is this looks like a parallel universe. I've never seen anything like it. I can prognosticate if this happens. So I do have a series of markers that to me will dictate how and if we're recovering. So for me, like we've discussed, the forbearance situation is a lifesaver and it's also a massive potential bubble because the majority of people taking these forbearances do not understand what the forbearance actually means. And I cover this at length in one of my videos, but the issue is, here's the analogy I use. If you take a normal homeowner with say a $1,500 mortgage payment, if they go 6 months without paying, obviously that afforded them the ability to survive. But what happens after 6 months, which in most cases will be October 1st. On October 1st, when the 6-month forbearance issue expires, what's going to happen is these people are going to contact the bank, or more likely the bank's going to contact them, and they're going to say, hey, Mr. Smith, you haven't made a mortgage payment in 6 months, no problem. We haven't affected your credit. We haven't reported anything. But hey, you're behind $9,000, and we just want to know, would you like to just write us a check? Or do we need to work something out? And of course, most people are not going to just write a check for $9,000, otherwise they would have paid their mortgage. So what most people are going to do is say, okay, yeah, what does that mean? Can you just tack it on the back end? For numerous reasons, that is not likely to exist unless you have an FHA loan. So what's going to happen in October is people are going to find out that their only option is to add that principal balance and do a repayment plan. So most likely your scenario is going to be, instead of paying $1,500 a month, you're going to be paying $2,000 a month for the next 18 months so you can catch up on your payments. Well, most people are very tight as it is. So if you're paying $1,500 a month in the greatest economy we've ever had, it's not very likely that you're going to be able to just add $500 arbitrarily for 18 months in an economy that's tanking and in a job force that you likely don't participate in. So to me, I want to see what happens in mid to end October, because that's when these conversations are going to occur. I think by the end of October, you're going to see a massive influx of sellers forced to put their home on the market because they can't pay $2,000 a month when they were 15, and even now 15 sounds rough. So if we get to November 1st and all of a sudden you're like, what happened last month? Inventory just blew up. Then I'm right. Then you can see that these chips are starting to fall.
Yeah.
Can't say dominoes, but I don't want to be Eric Trump there. So yeah, I think that's really the first precursor we want to look at.
Cool.
Then the next precursor is once people stop making their mortgage payments, obviously they go into default, and those defaults will start hitting in January. If you stop paying in October, then they hit in January. So let's see in January 1st, if the notice of default activity goes through the roof. If no notice of default activity goes through the roof, that means you're 6 months to 12 months from a bunch of foreclosures. Say 60% of those notice of defaults will turn into foreclosures. By January 1st, when those notice of defaults are filed, That's when I want to see how many short sales are popping up on the market.
Yeah.
How many people put their home on the market in October and are freaking out and lowering it to the price that they can't afford to sell. So to me, this, unless something severely happens over the next few months where we go, you can't avoid, like our inventory, it's kind of plateaued. If our inventory just continuously looks like an upward trend, that's not good. If it plateaus, okay, doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right.
The first benchmark to me is end of October.
Okay.
Next benchmark is January, and then we'll know kind of where we're at in like March.
Yeah. So let me just ask you one question, just given the story that you gave me at the start of the video. I think what you've outlined is kind of step 2 and 3, but there is that step 1 that I had never known or thought about, and that was that Pulte discussion. Do you think there's a chance that new developments, which are still going on in Vegas, that might be the first sign that they drop the prices again, or there's not enough of them, it won't happen?
Nearly as obvious. Whether it was intentional or just serendipitous, we'll find out. One of the main differences between now and during the original boom are two things. One, the median price between new homes and resale homes now is just stratospherically off. Whereas in 2007, going into 2008, there wasn't a huge gap like there is today.
Yeah.
And that affects a lot of issues when it comes to buying new homes, because if I have to sell my home and pull out the equity to buy this new home, the smaller the gap, the more it makes sense. The higher the gap, the less. That's one of the reasons why you didn't see people putting their homes on the market for sale and why inventory was dropping, because so many people that normally historically would have put their home up for sale, maybe spent another $100,000 to buy a new home, went, let me do the math. Well, my house is in a great neighborhood. I love my neighbors. But to get the new version, it's going to cost me $350,000. I'll just stay and remodel.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why we weren't creating inventory that normally, historically, we would have created.
Okay.
So with the price drops, the third issue is this. Even in 2007, when you would buy a brand new home, lot premiums were, you know, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, maybe $20,000. An unbelievable lot would be $60,000, maybe $80,000. If you were on the golf course, it would be $200,000. Okay. Now we've got lot premiums in just regular gated neighborhoods where they're regularly asking $400,000. I told you about one. Base price of the home is $850,000, and there's lot premiums that are $1.1 million. So the difference is these builders have gone so absurdly ridiculous with these lot premiums that instead of having a community where you're charging $400,000 for a lot premium, if they find themselves too impacted, they can just go, hey guys, you know, great news. Instead of a $400,000 lot premium, it's going to be $40,000. We'll throw in these upgrades. We'll do landscaping. I mean, things got so crazy during the recession that, I mean, they were throwing cars in. They'll pay off your SID. As a builder, the last thing you ever want to do is lower that base price. That's literally the very last thing you will ever do. It's not impossible that builders won't lower the base price, but what's most likely is first, you're going to see those lot premiums just plummet. Yeah. And then you're going to start seeing crazy incentives. So, hey, we'll put in a pool, just buy the house, you know, give you landscaping. I don't think you're going to see what happened before with base prices. Base prices aren't really the main problem with new homes. It's the ridiculous lot premiums.
Well, let's talk about that. And again, I have zero experience with lot premiums, right? Everything I buy is already existing, and usually it's 40 years old. But do you generally finance the lot, or do you have to pay the lot up front and then you just finance the $800K?
No, so it depends on the builder that you're using, right? So different builders have different rules, and it also depends on how much you upgrade the home. So typically what will happen is, let's say you want to buy a home that's $700,000 and it has a $200,000 lot premium. Okay. Depends on the builder, depends on the neighborhood that they're building in. You choose the house that you like. Yeah. Then you have, you know, if there's 8 lots available in this release, only certain lots will be able to accommodate the floor plan that you choose. Yep. So you choose the floor plan, and then basically you'll write them an earnest money check. And again, depends on the builder, depends on the price. It might be $20,000, might be $30,000. Then once you secured your lot,
Okay.
Then the next step is to go to the design center and choose your structural options and choose structural is done a contract, but your flooring, all of your upgrades, that's done at the design center.
Okay.
Most of them, it's a nominal amount. Some of them want 50% upfront. Some of them say, hey, you just have to go nothing. But if you exceed a certain amount, now we're scared that you've done so much upgrades to the home that we can't resell it. So if you exceed, say, 50,000 in upgrades, after 50,000 is 50% upfront deposit. So it really depends. But there's been a ton of cancellations on new homes. But what hasn't and won't be able to be told is how many people put $30,000 down for their earnest money and then went to the design center and wrote another check for $30,000. So they got $50,000 on the table.
Yeah.
That lot is just part of the purchase price. So
so that's what I'm asking, right? So could we, so the base, so what I'm hearing you say, and please tell me if I'm wrong, and let's use your example of 700, 200, and we'll say 100 grand in upgrades just to tie this out. So isn't it possible that, so the $700,000 base price stays the same, the 100 grand in upgrade stays the same, but in theory, they could take that 200 grand lot fee down to 20 grand. And wouldn't that be considered a price drop of 18%?
Sure.
Okay.
The issue is once you're in contract, because you got to remember, I mean, this is business, and builders are not in business to be nice, generous people who understand what you're going through.
No, I'm worried about the next purchase, because that was what I heard you say about Pulte in her first example, is they whacked values 200 grand. So maybe it's not the base price that gets whacked 200. Maybe it's those stupid lot fees this time.
Well,
and I don't know.
It depends on how you're referencing it, right?
Okay.
So when let's say we walk in off the street, yesterday they were asking $400,000 for lot 23. Today it's only 40,000. That is what I see happen.
Yes.
The difference is for the people, let's say, the house was 700, the lot was 400, and then we spent 100 on upgrades. So now we're into the house for $1.2 million. Once we're in contract, they're not going to go, hey man, I know you want to cancel. I understand. How about we just take $360,000 off that lot premium because that's what we're doing forever. That's not going to happen. They're going to say, cancel. We'll keep your $50,000 in deposits. Thank you.
We'll just sell it again.
Exactly. So I think the first thing you're really going to start noticing is as that lot premiums have become more reasonable. That's going to be the main thing.
So again, do you think that's, again, just to tie it way back to 2006 or 8, do you think lot fee reduction is even before October?
Yeah, I think it definitely could happen for sure. Because again, the numbers for new home sales tend to be a little bit more delayed, and I don't have that immediate access like I do. I can tell you right now to the moment exactly where we stand, not so much with new homes. And you're relying on certain honesty from the reporting department, right? How many visits, how many turns. So there's no question that new homes are having a difficult time. That's without doubt. But the question is, are they a private company or are they a publicly traded company? A lot of times that could have huge differences. Your smaller builders that are private, they don't have to answer to shareholders. So, during the recession, a lot of shady stuff happened. I mean, America West Homes, one of the greatest scams of all time. When this happened, I never ever sold another America West home. They went in and said, hey, look, I know prices are falling. I know people are scared. So here's what we're going to do. And this is true. They went in and said, look, if you purchase a home now, even though I know things are bad, if you try to sell your home in the next, I think it was 3 years, they said, if you try to sell your home in the next 3 years and you can't sell it for more than what you paid, we'll eat it. So you have nothing to be afraid of. I mean, what a great
awesome
insurance. So they got tons of people to just, all right, well, if they warranty it. And then what do you think their next step was?
Bankruptcy.
They filed bankruptcy.
Yeah, that's shady.
And Larry Canarelli was the owner, and he was probably the largest builder that owned all this land in the Southwest. And they filed bankruptcy on part. He managed to keep his land, came right back up, sold more homes, and business continues. So, I mean, I do think that you're going to see a lot of incentives start to occur. The question is, in what ways, in what fashion, and who is it coming from? Again, if you're a private small builder, you may not have the liquidity to ride this out for a few years. You might just have to just get something on the books.
Yeah,
If
for
you
sure.
are a larger company and like Toll Brothers or Pulte and you're well solvent, you might say, you know what? Let's just not worry too much about the numbers today. It's not worth dropping our pants for. Let's
Yeah.
hold out. Let's give a little bit of incentives, but let's not do
Yeah.
anything.
Let's slow roll it. Let's build it slow. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
We'll have to see as the
Well, one of the things I'm going to be looking for now is, because I'm sure they're going to market lot fee reductions, right? It'll be a selling point, right?
Yeah.
Oh, take this, next to the T box used to be 400, now it's 40. Again, just using simple math. That'll be something I look for between now and October. And then in October, I'm going to look for, the things that you're talking about. So, and then January again. So, why don't you tell folks how they can follow you? Because again, you put out a lot of great stuff. How can they follow you? How can they be a part of your YouTube channel?
Thanks so much. Yeah, so the YouTube channel is the Lebo Group. So you can just, YouTube/Lebo Group. And I post monthly update videos. Obviously, when major events occur, like coronavirus, or if there's severe lending changes, then I do special news update videos. So please go to the Lebo Group channel and subscribe. You can go to my website, lebogroup.com. And yeah, that's probably the two best ways to kind of keep abreast on the information. And you can contact me through either one of those venues. Bryan at lebogroup.com. You can email me, and my phone number is on the website and my YouTube channel.
Again, Bryan, this has been very helpful. I've learned so much. I'm going to be watching your content because again, I think, one guy's opinion, doesn't live in Vegas, has zero Vegas experience. I do think Vegas, just given the economy, is the canary for us as a country. And it's going to indicate coming out of it or pain first. And I'm going to be watching you to see what's happening.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. And thank you so much to all of your subscribers. After you solicited them, I received a ton of questions, comments, remarks from subscribers begging me to come on your show. So again, I just want to thank you. I want to thank all of your subscribers for all the support. Please subscribe to my channel, tell a friend. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much.
All right.